Transgender people, and particularly trans women of color, face high rates of violence against them in the United States.
Why, hello again, Riley.
The Office for Victims of Crime says that 1 in 2 transgender people are sexually abused or assaulted in their lifetime.
I checked your source. They say it's up to 66%, not 1 in 2, but close.
Citing studies from the International Journal of Transgenderism. In 2013, the National Coalition of Anti-Violence Programs found that transgender people are 7 times more likely to experience physical violence when interacting with the police than non-transgender people. In 2015, the NCAVP found that when transgender survivors of intimate partner violence tried to access emergency shelters, 44% of them were denied access. The NCAVP also found that 63% of trans survivors of hate violence knew the person who committed the violence against them beforehand.
And the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, the NCADV, says that 20 people are physically abused by intimate partners every minute in the United States. This equates to more than 10 million abuse victims annually.
The report also found that most of these problems were compounded by other factors, like if the survivor was a person of color, poor, or disabled. It's impossible to look at anti-trans violence without also seeing the intersections with racist, classist, and ableist violence. In 2016, we know of 27 trans people who were murdered. So far in 2017, we know of 9 trans people who have been murdered.
So a quick Google search yields me real-time data of what killings and deaths are happening in the United States, and I find that nowhere on here are transgendered, but that number is also so low that it would show up on the very last page between spontaneous combustion and struck by lightning. The highest number of killings this year is from heart disease at 202,000. Just as a comparison, homicides in the United States just for the year 2017, 5,538. Murder by gun, 3,789.
All trans women of color. These murders are happening so frequently that when I wrote this script a few weeks ago, that number was 8. Unfortunately, statistics on the murder rate of trans people are extremely hard to come by because so many trans people are misgendered in death and never even identified as trans.
Citing your sources, I found this page with all 9 of the known killings.
This can happen because the media doesn't know how to report on trans individuals, the police don't know how to deal with hate crimes towards trans people, or most commonly because the family of the dead trans person doesn't want the public to even know that their child was trans.
Riley, have you ever lost a family member? You don't go over their life, you just mourn it when they're gone. You regret what you didn't do or say, and you cherish the good memories you had. You don't worry about what they did.
Transphobic families, their child being trans is a source of shame for them, which means that they'll hide it at all costs, even when their child is murdered for being trans. Those NCAVP studies that I mentioned earlier interviewed thousands of queer people who had survived hate crimes, and many of them said that they didn't report to the police because they were afraid. And out of those who did, many felt that the police were hostile towards them. In several cases, trans people who reported violence to the police actually wound up being arrested instead of their abuser.
Which only makes you wonder if you're forgetting facts of the situation, like maybe they were both fighting, or maybe that person went to the police office to file a false report and got irate with the cops. You never know.
Desperately need more research on this. It would be ridiculous to assert that all the anti-trans violence and anti-trans murders in the US are being correctly reported right now. Let me give you a few examples. On January 9th, 2015, a trans woman named Poppy was shot and killed by a man after she told him that she was transgender. Poppy's friend, Tiffany, another trans woman, told the police that Poppy was a trans woman who had been killed because she was trans. There's even video footage from the night of the shooting showing Poppy presenting as a woman. But the police spokesperson told the press, "That was a man that was shot. It was always a man." And they said that the victim's gender identity never played a role in the homicide investigation.
And what that means is they investigated the facts, the videos, the surroundings, the statements, and all the information, but did not decide based on the fact that it was a cross-dresser.
That's just one example, but it's impossible to know how many more of these there are. And even when the evidence is clear that it was a hate crime, many states don't even count gender identity as one of the ways to be targeted for a hate crime. In August 2016, Raylan Thomas, a transgender woman, was shot and beaten to death by her mother's ex-boyfriend as he called her the devil and shouted transphobic comments.
And while that's such a terrible event, there's horrible things like that happening all over the world. Somebody could cut another person off on the highway and get shot in the head for it. A cop could pull a guy over, and as soon as he gets up to the car, he gets shot just because he was the cop who pulled him over. It doesn't matter. Horrible things happen all of the time. You're trying to tell everybody it's a large prevailing problem. It is a problem, yes. Should it happen? No. Are there statistics? Yes. But not as big as you say.
Ohio doesn't have a statewide hate crime law for gender identity, and her murder was never officially investigated as a hate crime. Being transgender in the US is scary, especially if you're a trans woman of color, if you're poor, if you're a sex worker, or if you're disabled.
Okay, so again, he keeps saying, Riley, crossdresser, keeps saying that it's a horrible thing that we aren't covering this, but people are covering this. But the other problem is he's not talking about transsexuals, he's talking about transgenders, people who identify differently. Just because you identify one way doesn't mean that everybody has to recognize it when they're looking at your situation. That's your personal identification. It doesn't matter to anybody else. Seriously, get on board, buddy.
These communities know that they're hated and targeted, and they've seen their friends and loved ones get killed, beaten, and abused over the years. Mike has a project called Unerased that tracks the murders of trans women since 2010 and is continually updated. If you want to learn more about the stories of these trans people, you should really check it out. They found that while the average American's risk of being murdered is about 1 in 19,000, that risk jumps to 1 in 2,600 for young black trans women.
Alright, and I'm not that dedicated to tearing Riley apart to sit down and do the math to figure out how many transgendered people there are, how many transsexual people there are, how many poor people and rich people. I looked at some of the statistics. I posted some for people to see that I am looking this stuff up. And Riley is just misconstruing these facts as they're out there. A percentage of the population is affected by these circumstances, yes, but you're completely misconstruing the whole dynamic. It's a person getting killed. It's not about who the person is or how they live. Period.
But without well-documented nationwide statistics, people still aren't taking these cases seriously. Lots of reporting has been happening, like Mike's Unerased series, the NCAVP's hate violence tracking, GLAAD's reporting of murdered trans people, and the Human Rights Campaign's tracking of murdered trans people. So far, all the evidence points towards a huge problem of violence against the trans community,
and in order for us to look at that, you have to look at the fact that you're combining one large community of transgendered trans-trenders into actual trans people who are transforming themselves. You're combining this huge statistic and trying to make it a large anomaly, and it's not.
Just because there is a lack of federally collected data on this doesn't mean that the trans community is safe. Trans people are often terrified to come out because they know the danger it would put them in. They can anticipate the violent reactions of their family members, friends, and romantic or sexual partners. Lots of trans people are disowned by their parents and kicked out of their homes for coming out.
Riley, people get kicked out of their house for stealing. People get kicked out just because their parents are abusive drunks. People get kicked out because they turn 18. People get kicked out because they finish school. I mean, people live on the streets just because they were born there. Riley, you need to stop misconstruing the statistics. Fight on their side, yes, but we are not going to absolutely listen to a bunch of people who dye their hair blue and say they want rights and different respect than everybody else. Call me Zer because my hair is blue and I don't want to be a girl anymore.
According to the National Center for Transgender Equality, 1 in 5 trans people has experienced homelessness at some point in their life, and 20 to 40% of homeless youth identify somewhere on the LGBT+ spectrum, despite the fact that only about 4% of the total population identifies as LGBT+.
You heard that right. 4% of the population, or 1/20th of all people involved, are in this category, as Riley wants to put it. I started out with statistics, and I tried to stick to them, but I get really angry when I do a response to Riley because he is just all over the place, and trying to take his videos and respond to what he has to say is nearly impossible unless you go frame by frame. Hey, I got a new Patreon page. Please check it out. Give me a thumbs up. Give me a like. Tell somebody about me. Get them to check out my page. I'm working on 3D. We'll see what I have soon. Thanks. Later.